Sometimes a name can tell you everything that you need to know. Don't starve. That's it. No prophecy, no chosen one, no grand objective hanging over the world. Just find food before your stomach turns inside out. And early on, that really does seem like the entire game. Your first few runs are disasters in a very specific way. You pick berries too slowly. You wander too far from camp. You forget to cook something. You spend the entire afternoon chasing a rabbit like a medieval cartoon character. Everything points back to food, so naturally the player starts treating hunger as the center of survival itself. Until, eventually, the game stops working that way. Not all at once, just gradually. You learn where your resources spawn. You start building traps before you need them. Farms become predictable. Crockpots turn random garbage into actual meals. And one day, you notice something strange. You're not dying from hunger. It's still there, the hunger meter still drops, but it stops feeling decisive. Instead, the game starts attacking you from the sides. Night arrives while you're still out collecting wood. Rain soaks your supplies while you're halfway through another task. Winter approaches faster than expected because you spent too many days solving smaller problems. Armor breaks during something that shouldn't have become a fight in the first place. Nothing is individually catastrophic, but there's just too many moving pieces that are beginning to touch each other. And that's the point where Don't Starve quietly changes genre. Early on, survival feels reactive. Find food, stay alive. Panic, but make sure you're being efficient while doing so. Later, survival becomes scheduling. Not because the game tells you to optimize, but because problems stop arriving one at a time. Some dangers announce themselves far in advance. Winter is coming whether you're ready or not. Certain bosses practically send calendar invitations before they show up. You see these things coming early enough to prepare, but preparation itself becomes its own job. You need thermal stones, food stockpiles, drying racks, extra fuel, backup plans for the backup plans. The threat isn't surprise, it's scale. And honestly, those are usually the easiest problems to emotionally process because at least they behave fairly. They stand in the distance waving at you like a tax auditor. Hello, I will be ruining your month soon. Please prepare accordingly. But the smaller problems are worse because they never fully leave. Your tools wear down while you're distracted. Hounds attack during other tasks. Food cycles drift out of sync. You realize halfway through a trip that you forgot one material, which somehow turns a one-day errand into an expedition fueled entirely by regret. Nothing dramatic kills your run. The run just starts to slip. That's the important feeling that Don't Starve creates, not sudden collapse, but recovery getting harder than the problems themselves. One mistake creates another task. That task delays preparation somewhere else, and now daylight's running short, and now you're cold, and now you're fighting spiders at dusk because your original plan failed 6 minutes ago. The game rarely punishes one bad decision directly. It waits for several small delays to start bumping into each other. And the longer a world survives, the more sensitive it becomes to these interruptions. A large base sounds comforting until you realize it also means more structures decaying, more food management, more routes to maintain, more things quietly waiting to become problems if you ignore them long enough. You spend so much time trying to stabilize life that eventually the stabilization becomes life. Which is the point where this game started to remind me of my mom. We grew up very poor, small town, single parent household. My mom worked at a local newspaper for $200 a month while raising 2 kids and going to college full time. Eventually, she became the first person in our family to earn a degree. And from the outside, that looked like the end of the hard part. The degree was finished. The late night classes were done. A job was found teaching college-level linguistics. We moved across the country to a less economically repressed area. The kind of story that people usually tell with uplifting music playing over a montage of cardboard boxes and optimism. But the strange thing about finally succeeding at something difficult is that success often arrives carrying more responsibilities than failure ever did. Teaching wasn't just teaching, it was grading papers late at night, it was lesson planning, it was administrative work, it was meetings, deadlines, constant exhaustion stretched across years instead of months. And she could do it. That was never the issue. The issue was whether a person could stay inside that pace forever without something eventually giving way. Over time, she stopped doing the things that she enjoyed. Her leisure disappeared quietly. Her days became repetition of work, recovery, and preparation for more work. Then, eventually, even her recovery started getting cut down. Sleep shortened. Exhaustion became her routine. I remember finding her half asleep in bed with stacks of papers across her lap, a giant bottle of tea beside her bed, and a cigarette still burning in the ashtray while she tried to finish grading before the morning. Not a dramatic collapse, just somebody slowly losing every part of life that wasn't survival. And eventually, her health gave out. She retired less than 10 years after becoming the first person in our family to earn a degree. What unsettles me about Don't Starve is how familiar that progression feels, because getting better at the game doesn't simplify survival. It expands how much of the world depends on your attention. A successful base doesn't mean you finally get peace. A successful base is infrastructure, food production, storage, fuel reserves, seasonal preparation, resource routes, emergency supplies. You don't remove problems, you just inherit larger versions of them. Inexperienced players understand this almost instinctively. A new player focuses on what's directly attacking them. Experienced players are watching things that haven't failed yet. What food source is about to run dry? How long until the winter? Whether supplies are keeping pace with usage? Whether one delayed trip is about to create 3 additional problems later on? You start tracking absences instead of emergencies. That shift changes the emotional texture of the game completely. The world doesn't necessarily become scarier, it becomes harder to ignore. Because eventually the player realizes survival is less about solving individual threats and more about preventing too many problems from overlapping at once. A stable run is not a perfect run. It's a run where mistakes remain recoverable. That's all. You're constantly trying to keep the world in a state where recovery is still possible. And the terrifying thing is how temporary that condition always feels. Leave a world unattended for too long and it starts drifting almost immediately. Your food spoils, your resources disappear, seasonal prep falls behind, tasks pile up faster than they can be cleared. You come back after being distracted for a few in-game days and suddenly the base feels less like home and more like an apology waiting to happen. And after enough time with Don't Starve, the game stops feeling like a challenge about hunger. Hunger is just the first timer that the player notices. What the game is really good at creating is that feeling of holding several fragile routines together while time keeps moving underneath all of them. Not a disaster, just maintenance. Not failure, just the constant possibility of falling behind badly enough that recovery stops being realistic. And maybe that's why the game lingers in people's heads for so long, because beneath all of the monsters and the absurd little survival mechanics, it understands something unpleasantly ordinary. Sometimes surviving isn't about winning anything. It's about keeping pace with collapse for just one more day. I hope you enjoyed this video. I guess, to finish my mom's story, she'd passed away a while ago. She was very happy, she was loved, and honestly, I think if she had the chance, she probably would have done most of it all over again. I just wish she'd been able to spend more time enjoying and being proud of the life that she'd worked so hard to build, instead of constantly trying to just keep up with it. I think a lot of people deserve that. Anyway, I might not know you, but I love you. Take care.